Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 9, Bhishma's Passing Away, Slok 33. Tribhuvana Kamanam Tamalavarna Ravikar Gaurava Ambaram Dadhani Vapula Kakula Vrutana Nabjam Vijayasakhe Ratirastu Ma Ena Vadya. Shri Krishna is the intimate friend of Arjuna. He has appeared on this earth in his transcendental body, which resembles the bluish color of the tamal tree. His body attracts everyone in the three upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. May his glittering yellow dress and his lotus face, covered with paintings of sandalwood pulp, be the object of my attraction, and may I not desire fruitive results. When Shri Krishna, by his own internal pleasure, appears on earth, he does so by the agency of his internal potency. The attractive features of his transcendental body are desired in all the three worlds, namely the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. Now, where in the universe are there such beautiful bodily features as those of Lord Krishna? Therefore, his transcendental body has nothing to do with anything materially created. Arjun is described here as the conqueror, and Krishna is described as his intimate friend. Bhishma Deva, on his bed of arrows after the battle of Kurukshetra, is remembering the particular dress of Lord Krishna, which he put on as the driver of Arjuna's chariot. While fighting was going on between Arjuna and Bhishma, Bhishma's attraction was drawn by the glittering dress of Krishna, and indirectly he admired his so-called enemy Arjuna for possessing the Lord as his friend. Arjun was always a conqueror because the Lord was his friend. Bhishma Deva takes this opportunity to address the Lord as Vijayasakhi, friend of Arjuna, because the Lord is pleased when he is addressed conjointly with his devotees who are related with him in different transcendental humors. While Krishna was the charioteer of Arjuna, sun rays glittered on the dress of the Lord, and the beautiful hue created by the reflection of such rays was never forgotten by Bhishma Deva. As a great fighter, he was relishing the relation of Krishna in the chivalrous humor. Transcendental relation with the Lord in any one of the different rasas is relishable by the respective devotees in the highest ecstasy. Less intelligent mundaners who want to make a show of being transcendentally related with the Lord artificially jump at once to the relation of conjugal love, imitating the damsels of Vrajadham. Such a cheap relation with the Lord exhibits only the base mentality of the mundaner, because one who has relished conjugal humor with the Lord cannot be attached to worldly conjugal rasa, which is condemned even by mundane ethics. The eternal relation of a particular soul with the Lord is evolved. A genuine relation of the living being with the Supreme Lord can take any form out of the five principal rasas, and it does not make any difference in transcendental degree to the genuine devotee. Bhishma Deva is a concrete example of this, and it should be carefully observed how the great general is transcendentally related with the Lord. Slok 34. Yudhi Turagar Jo Vidhumra Vishvaka कचलुलितश्रम वार्य लकृतास्ये मम निश्चितश्चैरे विभिद्यमान त्वचि विलसत्कवचित् अस्तु कृष्ण आत्मा. On the battlefield where Sri Krishna attended Arjuna out of friendship, the flowing hair of Lord Krishna turned ashen due to the dust raised by the hoofs of the horses, and because of his labor, beads of sweat wetted his face. All these decorations, intensified by the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows, were enjoyed by him. Let my mind thus go unto Sri Krishna. The Lord is the absolute form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge. As such, transcendental loving service of the Lord in one of the five principal relations, namely Santadasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, that is neutrality, servitorship, fraternity, filial affection, and conjugal love, is graciously accepted by the Lord when offered to the Lord in genuine love and affection. Sri Bhishma Deva is a great devotee of the Lord in the relation of servitorship. Thus his throwing of sharp arrows at the transcendental body of the Lord is as good as the worship of another devotee who throws soft roses upon him. It appears that Bhishma Deva is repenting his actions which he committed against the person of the Lord, but factually the Lord's body was not at all pain due to his transcendental existence. His body is not matter. Both he himself and his body are complete spiritual identity. Spirit is never pierced, burnt, dried, moistened, etc. This is vividly explained in the Bhagavat Gita. So also it is stated in the Skandha Purana. It is said that spirit is always uncontaminated and indestructible. It cannot be distressed, nor can it be dried up. When Lord Vishnu in his incarnation appears before us, he seems to be like one of the conditional souls, materially engaged just to bewild the asuras or the non-believers who are always alert to kill the Lord. Even from the very beginning of his appearance, Kans wanted to kill Krishna and Ravan wanted to kill Ram because foolishly they were unaware of the fact that the Lord is never killed, for the spirit is never annihilated. Therefore, Bhishma Deva's piercing of the body of Lord Krishna is a sort of bewildering problem for the non-devotee atheist, but those who are devotees or those who are liberated souls are not bewildered. Bhishma Deva appreciated the all-merciful attitude of the Lord because he did not leave Arjun alone, although he was disturbed by the sharpened arrows of Bhishma Deva, nor was he reluctant to come before Bhishma's deathbed. Even though he was ill-treated by him in the battlefield, Bhishma's repentance and the Lord's merciful attitude are both unique in this picture. Sri Vishwantha Chakravarti Thakur, a great Acharya and devotee in the humor of conjugal love with the Lord, remarks very silently in this regard. He says that the wounds created on the body of the Lord by the sharpened arrows of Bhishma Deva were as pleasing to the Lord as the beating of a fiancé who bites the body of the Lord directed by a strong sense of sex desire. Such biting by the opposite sex is never taken as a sign of enmity, even if there is a wound on the body. Therefore, the fighting as an exchange of transcendental pleasure between the Lord and his pure devotee, Sri Bhishma Deva, was not at all mundane. Besides that, since the Lord's body and the Lord are identical, there was no possibility of wounds in the absolute body. The apparent wounds caused by the sharpened arrows are misleading to the common man, but one who has a little absolute knowledge can understand the transcendental exchange in the chivalrous relation. The Lord was perfectly happy with the wounds caused by the sharpened arrows of Bhishma Deva. The word Vibhidyaman is significant because the Lord's skin is not different from the Lord. Because our skin is different from our soul, in our case, the word Vibhidyaman or being bruised and cut would have been quite suitable. Transcendental bliss is of different varieties, and the variety of activities in the mundane world is but a perverted reflection of transcendental bliss. Because everything in the mundane world is qualitatively mundane, it is full of inebrities, whereas in the absolute realm, because everything is of the same absolute nature, there are varieties of enjoyment without inebriety. The Lord enjoyed the wounds created by his great devotee Bhishma Deva, and because Bhishma Deva is a devotee in the chivalrous relation, he fixes up his mind on Krishna in that wounded condition. Shlok 35. Sapadi sakhivacho निशम्य मध्ये निजपर्यो बलयो रथम निवेश्य स्थितवती परसैनिका युरक्षा ऋतवती पार्थसखे रति मम अस्तु. In obedience to the command of his friend Lord Shri Krishna, entered the arena of the battlefield of Kurukshetra between soldiers of Arjun and Duryodhana, and while there he shortened the lifespans of the opposite party by his merciful glance. This was done simply by his looking at the enemy. Let my mind be fixed upon that Krishna. In the Bhagavat Gita, Arjun ordered the infallible Lord Shri Krishna to place his chariot between the phalanxes of the soldiers. He asked him to stay there until he had finished observing the enemies he had to face in the battle. When the Lord was so asked, he at once did so, just like an order carrier, and the Lord pointed out all the important men on the opposite side, saying, "Here is Bhishma, here is Drona," and so on. The Lord, being the supreme living being, is never the order supplier or order carrier of anyone, whoever may he be, but out of his causeless mercy and affection for his pure devotees, sometimes he carries out the order of the devotee like an awaiting servant. By executing the order of a devotee, the Lord becomes pleased as a father is pleased to carry out the order of his small child. This is possible only out of pure transcendental love between the Lord and his devotees, and Bhishma Deva is quite aware of this fact. He therefore addressed the Lord as the friend of Arjun. The Lord diminished the duration of life of the opposite party by his merciful glance. It is said that all fighters who assemble on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attain salvation by personally seeing the Lord at the time of death. Therefore, his diminishing the duration of life of the enemy of Arjuna does not mean that he was partial to the cause of Arjuna. Factually, he was merciful to the opposite party because they would not have attained salvation by dying at home in the ordinary course of life. Here was a chance to see the Lord at the time of death and thus attain salvation from material life. Therefore, the Lord is all good, and whatever he does is for everyone's good. Apparently, it was for the victory of Arjun, his intimate friend, but factually it was for the good of Arjuna's enemies. Such are the transcendental activities of the Lord, and whoever understands this also gets salvation after quitting this material body. The Lord does no wrong in any circumstances because he is absolute, all good at all times. Shlok 36. Vyavahita prutanam mukham निरीक्ष्य स्वजनवधाद्विमुखस्य दोषबुद्ध्या कुमतिमहरदात्मविद्या यश्चरणरतिः परमस्य तस्य म अस्तु. When Arjuna was seemingly polluted by ignorance upon observing the soldiers and commanders before him on the battlefield, the Lord eradicated his ignorance by delivering transcendental knowledge. May his lotus feet always remain the object of my attraction. The kings and the commanders were to stand in the front of the fighting soldiers. That was the system of actual fighting. The kings and commanders were not so-called presidents or ministers of defense as they are today. They would not stay home while the poor soldiers or mercenaries were fighting face to face. This may be the regulation of modern democracy, but when actual monarchy was prevailing, the monarchs were not cowards elected without consideration of qualification. As it was evident from the battlefield of Kurukshetra, all the executive heads like Drona, Bhishma, Arjun, Duryodhana, etc. of both parties were not sleeping, but all of them were actual participants in the fighting, which was selected to be executed at a place away from the civil residential quarters. This means that the innocent citizens were immune from all effects of fighting between the rival royal parties. The citizens had no business to see what was going to happen after such fighting. They were to pay 1/4 of their income to the ruler, whether he be Arjun or Duryodhana. All the commanders of the parties on the battlefield of Kurukshetra were standing face to face, and Arjuna saw them with great compassion and lamented that he was to kill his kinsmen on the battlefield for the sake of the empire. He was not at all afraid of the giant military phalanx presented by Duryodhana, but as a merciful devotee of the Lord, renunciation of worldly things was natural for him, and thus he decided not to fight for worldly possessions. But this was due to a pure fund of knowledge, and therefore it is said here that his intelligence became polluted. His intelligence could not be polluted at any time because he was a devotee and constant compassion of the Lord, as is clear in the 4th chapter of the Bhagavat Gita. Apparently, Arjuna's intelligence became polluted because otherwise there would not have been a chance to deliver the teachings of Bhagavat Gita for the good of all polluted conditioned souls engaged in material bondage by the conception of the false material body. The Bhagavad Gita was delivered to the conditioned souls of the world to deliver them from the wrong conception of identifying the body with the soul, and to re-establish the soul's eternal relation with the Supreme Lord. Atma Vidya, or transcendental knowledge of himself, was primarily spoken by the Lord for the benefit of all concerned in all parts of the universe. Shlok 37. Swanigama pahaya mat pratijñamrutam adhikartutvam lupto rathastha drutaratha charano abhyayascha chalat guruhu ira hantu bhimam gatoho tat riyaha. Fulfilling my desire and sacrificing his own promise, he got down from the chariot, took up its wheel, and ran towards me hurriedly. Just like a lion goes to kill an elephant, he even dropped his outer garment on the way. The battle of Kurukshetra was fought on military principles, but at the same time in a sporting spirit, like a friend fights with another friend. Duryodhana criticized Bhishma Deva, alleging that he was reluctant to kill Arjuna because of paternal affection. A Kshatriya cannot tolerate insults on the principle of fighting. Bhishma Deva therefore promised that the next day he would kill all 5 Pandavas with special weapons made for the purpose. Duryodhana was satisfied and he kept the arrows with him to be delivered the next day during the fight. By tricks, Arjuna took the arrows from Duryodhana, and Bhishma Deva could understand that this was the trick of Lord Krishna. So he took a oath that the next day Krishna would have to take up weapons himself, otherwise his friend Arjun would die. So in the next day's fighting, Bhishma Deva fought so violently that both Arjun and Krishna were in trouble. Arjun was almost defeated. The situation was so tense that he was about to be killed by Bhishma Deva. The very next moment, at that time, Lord Krishna wanted to please his devotee Bhishma by keeping his promise, which was more important than his own. Seemingly, he broke his own promise. He promised before the beginning of the battle of Kurukshetra that he would remain without weapons and would not use his strength for either of the parties, but to protect Arjun. He got down from the chariot, took up the wheel of the chariot, and hurriedly rushed at Bhishma Deva in an angry mood, like a lion goes to kill an elephant. He dropped his covering cloth on the way, and out of great anger, he did not know that he dropped it. Bhishma Deva at once gave up his weapons and stood to be killed by Krishna, his beloved Lord. The fighting of the day was thus ended at that very moment, and Arjuna was saved. Of course, there was no possibility of Arjuna's death because the Lord himself was on the chariot, but because Bhishma Deva wanted to see Lord Krishna take up some weapon to save his friend, the Lord created this situation, making Arjuna's death imminent. He stood before Bhishma Deva to show him that his promise was fulfilled and that he had taken up the veil. Shlok 38. Shitavishi rahato Vishirna danshaha Kshataj pari palupta atata ino me Prasabhama bisasar Madhva-dhartha sabhavatu me Bhagwan gatihi mukundaha. May he, Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who awards salvation, be my ultimate destination. On the battlefield, he charged me as if angry because of the wounds dealt by my sharp arrows. His shield was scattered and his body was smeared with blood due to the wounds. The dealings of Lord Krishna and Bhishma Deva on the battlefield of Kurukshetra are interesting because the activities of Lord Shri Krishna appeared to be partial to Arjun and at enmity with Bhishma Deva. But factually, all this was especially meant to show special favor to Bhishma Deva, a great devotee of the Lord. The astounding feature of such dealings is that a devotee can please the Lord by playing the part of an enemy. The Lord, being absolute, can accept service from his pure devotee even in the garb of an enemy. The Supreme Lord cannot have any enemy, nor can a so-called enemy harm him because he is Ajita or unconquerable, but still he takes pleasure when his pure devotee beats him like an enemy or rebukes him from a superior position, although no one can be superior to the Lord. These are some of the transcendental reciprocal dealings of the devotee with the Lord, and those who have no information of pure devotional service cannot penetrate into the mystery of such dealings. Bhishma Deva played the part of a valiant warrior, and he purposely pierced the body of the Lord so that to the common eyes it appeared that the Lord was wounded. but factually, all this was to bewilder the non devotees. The all spiritual body cannot be wounded, and a devotee cannot become the enemy of the Lord. Had it been so, then Bhishma Deva would not have desired to have the very same Lord as the ultimate destination of his life. Had Bhishma Deva been an enemy of the Lord, he could have annihilated him without even moving. There was no need to come before Bhishma Deva with blood and wounds, but he did so because the warrior devotee wanted to see the transcendental beauty of the Lord decorated with wounds created by a pure devotee. This is the way of exchanging transcendental rasas or relations between the Lord and the servitor. By such dealings, both the Lord and the devotee become glorified in their respective positions. The Lord was so angry that Arjuna checked him when he was moving towards Bhishma Deva, but in spite of Arjuna's checking, he proceeded towards Bhishma Deva as a lover goes to a lover without caring for hindrances. Apparently, his determination was to kill Bhishma Deva, but factually it was to please him as a great devotee of the Lord. The Lord is undoubtedly the deliverer of all conditioned souls. The impersonalist desires salvation from him, and he always awards them according to their aspiration. But here, Bhishma Deva aspires to see the Lord in his personal feature. All pure devotees aspire for this. Shlok 39. Vijaya Ratha Kutumba Atattotre Dhrutayarashmini Taschi Ekshanaye Bhagavati Ratihi Astu Me Mumur Shoryamihim Niriksha Hatagata Swarupam. At the moment of death, let my ultimate attraction to be Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. I concentrate my mind upon the chariot deliverer of Arjuna, who stood with a whip in his right hand and a bridle rope in his left, who was very careful to give protection to Arjuna's chariot by all means. Those who saw him on the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original forms after death. A pure devotee of the Lord constantly sees the presence of the Lord within himself because of being transcendentally related by loving service. Such a pure devotee cannot forget the Lord for a moment. This is called trance. The mystic yogi tries to concentrate upon the supersoul by controlling the senses from all other engagements, and thus he ultimately attains samadhi. A devotee more easily attains samadhi or trance by constantly remembering the Lord's personal feature along with his body, name, fame, pastimes, etc. Therefore, the concentration of the mystic yogi and that of the devotee are not on the same level. The concentration of the mystic is sometimes mechanical, whereas that of the pure devotee is natural in pure love and spontaneous affection. Bhishma Deva was a pure devotee, and as a military marshal, he constantly remembered the battlefield feature of the Lord as Partha Sarathi, the chariot driver of Arjuna. Therefore, the Lord's pastime as Partha Sarathi is also eternal. All the pastimes of the Lord, beginning from his birth at the present house of Kansa up to the Maushala Lila at the end, all move one after another in all the universes, just as the clock hand moves from one point to another, and in such pastimes his associates like the Pandavas and Bhishma are constant eternal companions. So Bhishma Deva never forgot the beautiful feature of the Lord as Parthasarathi, which even Arjuna could not see. Arjuna was behind the beautiful Parthasarathi, while Bhishma Deva was just in front of the Lord. As far as the military feature of the Lord is concerned, Bhishma Deva observed this with more relish than Arjuna. All the soldiers and persons of the battlefield of Kurukshetra attained their original spiritual form like the Lord after their death, because by the causeless mercy of the Lord they were all able to see him face to face on that occasion. The conditioned souls rotating in the revolutionary cycle from the aquatics up to the form of Brahma are all in the form of Maya, or the form obtained by one's own actions and avoided by material nature. The material forms of the conditioned souls are all foreign races, and when the conditioned soul becomes liberated from the clutches of material energy, he attains his original form. The impersonalist wants to attain the impersonal Brahman effulgence of the Lord, but that is not at all congenial to the living sparks, parts and parcels of the Lord. Therefore, the impersonalists again fall down and get material forms, which are all false to the spirit soul. A spiritual form like the Lord's, either two-handed or four-handed, is attained by the devotees of the Lord, either in the Vaikunthas or in the Goloka plants, according to the original nature of the soul. This form, which is cent% spiritual, is the Swarupa of the living being, and all the living beings who participated on the battlefield of Kurukshetra on both sides attained their Swarup as confirmed by Bhishma Deva. So Lord Shri Krishna was not only merciful to the Pandavas, but he was also merciful to the other parties, because all of them attained the same result. Bhishma Deva wanted to same facility also, and that was his prayer to the Lord, although his position as an associate of the Lord is assured in all circumstances. The conclusion is that whoever dies looking on the personality of Godhead within or without attains his Swarupa, which is the highest perfection of life.